After a year or two, my first watercolor brushes just fell apart. The problem they had was right here. Water would get in between the wood and the ferrule. At first, I'm sure it was just teeny microscopic amounts, but it began to deteriorate the wood, and over time, I noticed the ferrules got loose, and then someday they just fell apart. This is what happened. This brush is the oldest brush that I still have, because when this brush started to come apart, I got an idea. And that idea was to tape it up. And every time a brush started looking beat up on me, I taped it up. And this brush, I know, is 25 years old. It might be 30 years old. And it's still a good brush, still working hard for me very often. And let me show you what I do. I start with plain old electrical tape. I open it up so that I get a fresh edge, and then I tape a little bit below the turns in the ferrule, and just keep going. It really isn't necessary to tape all the way to the back, but often just for neatness purposes I do. That brush is waterproof. I don't stop there. Before I take a brush out into the field, I will do the same here. And I will put a yellow ring around the middle of the brush. Now, the reason for this is when you're outside and you're painting on location and you drop the brush in the grass, I promise you, without that yellow thing, it's just invisible. Since I started putting a little yellow tape in the middle of the brush, I've never lost one. I often bring paints along when I travel, and what you're looking at is a pretty typical brush rig that I would bring with me if I were planning on doing quite a bit of painting. All I do is I take these brushes like that. I take a dowel that's longer than the brushes like this, and I put some rubber bands on it. I put 4 rubber bands, not because I need 4, 2 will do, but if I ever lose a rubber band, I got a spare or 2. As long as the dowel is longer than the brushes, when this goes in the suitcase, I have found that there's little to no damage done to them. I know that there are lots of fancy brush holders on the market. I've seen them, I've tried them. They're very nice. They do a better job than this, but when you're traveling, you kind of want to travel light, and this is perfect.